A giant cave on the border of Mongolia and China gave off a really loud and strange sounds that had the residents terrified. No one knows what could have caused it. Still, it didn't stop people from entering the large cave to uncover the source of the mysterious sounds. What triggered the sound from this cave? Does it pose any danger to nearby residents? Join us as we investigate at the strange sounds coming from a giant cave on the borders of Mongolia and China.
The mountainous area in Wenying County of Guizhou Province has recently been producing an unusual sound for several days.
Weird sounds coming from giant cave. Between the border of Mongolia and China exists a giant cave that few people have an interest in entering. From time to time, tourists take a quick look at the cave from outside and move on because there's little or nothing known about this mysterious cave. No one has ever entered this cave because it is closed and way too scary. Natives residing in the area usually keep their distance to avoid encountering strange events. But no one expected what happened one day. Everyone started hearing mysterious sounds that seemed like they didn't have an earthly origin. It couldn't have been coming from one of the residential houses or construction sites around. Women and children shook in fear as they sought comfort in the safety of their homes. The men and youths couldn't keep their curiosity in check as they came out of the house to defend their territory against any perceived attack. The sound could be coming from an enemy warship or technology equipment meant to wipe out their little town. Assumptions couldn't be made at this time, as all measures must be taken to ensure their survival. The men trooped out to confront the source of this sound. In their minds, they were prepared to face a group of raiders, militant enemy forces, or some wild animal responsible for making that sound. No one expected what they saw as they stepped out. As soon as the men put their first foot out of the world, they could find no visible threat. The environment was the same as they left it. Everything was in its rightful place. Nothing seemed upturned or disorganized. So they decided that if everything looked okay on the outside, they would just have to trace where the sound was coming from. Step by step, they began inching towards the source of this strange sound happening in broad daylight. As they got near the source, they were shocked. The sound was coming from nowhere other than the giant cave that stood on the border of China and Mongolia. Up till now, very few people had an interest in exploring this cave because it is sealed. For a while, the first instinct of many people was to freeze or flee. Some of them decided that they couldn't risk their lives for this because they had a beautiful wife and family to look after, so they turned back. Others froze in place for some seconds, just processing the sight and thinking of ways to enter this giant cave. The cave was sealed from the inside and no one could ever open it. Inside this cave were ancient secrets from past human civilizations. On the flip side, however, the giant cave didn't seem like it held something good for anyone, so everyone was cautious about acting hastily. With the men standing around the cave for a long time without coming home, the women began to come out slowly to check if their husbands and brothers were safe. Children were told to keep themselves shut at home and never come out unless their mothers and fathers knocked at the door. As the women traced the sounds down to where the men were, they also heard the strange sounds coming out of the giant cave. Seeking explanations from the men around, no one could offer a definite explanation on why the cave was making such sounds. Pinpointing the exact location and cause of the sound was practically impossible. Opening the cave to find out all their answers was a Herculean task because no one dared open it. They were too afraid of what would happen should the doors of the cave swing open. Too many terrifying stories heard from birth crippled their resolve to do anything concrete about the mysterious sounds. Maybe if they hadn't grown up around the border of Mongolia and China and heard the scary stories passed down from generation to generation, they wouldn't have let those superstitious beliefs take a strong hold in their hearts to the point of getting paralyzed with fear. The men were scared. The women were frightened. No one had the courage to barge into the cave to get answers for the town. The most they could do was stand around the giant cave and analyze what was happening. Discussions in hushed tones were heard all around as the men discussed the way forward, whether to break into the cave as a group or leave the scene in hopes that the sound would stop on their own accord. While they were discussing, even they knew they had no plans of breaking into the cave. No one wanted to be used as another statistic or be immortalized as a legendary figure in a folktale that would be told to the next generation. Everyone just wanted to live a quiet life as best as they could, avoiding whatever danger the giant cave had for them. The only feasible plan of action was to abandon the cave in hopes that the sound would subside naturally. Whatever was causing the sound had to be natural, as no man or beast could enter the cave anyway. If it started naturally, it's only logical that it would end naturally. Reluctantly, everyone resigned to the natural phenomenon taking place and started locating their way home. Husbands looked around for their wives. Wives located their husbands. Together, they all walked home while discussing what just happened on the way. This tale would make a nice story for their children. It was just sad that they didn't have the courage to pursue the end of the story. None of the children would look up to their fathers as the ones who broke into the cave to address the sound head-on. None of the men could be a living hero to their kids. They all stepped out fearlessly and went back defeated. They could only wish that their children would be the ones to break out of the psychological fear that imprisoned them due to traditions and superstitious beliefs. The giant cave wasn't one to be messed with. Though the men would have loved to be the heroes of the day, their wives were grateful that they didn't risk their lives trying to open the doors of the cave. No one knew how ugly the situation would have turned out. Finding out the truth for oneself means that the person agrees to be a sacrificial lamb if the stories of the cave turn out to be true. And no one wanted that. This event happened 2 years ago, and up till now, no one has dared open the giant cave on the border of Mongolia and China. It wasn't only the giant cave between Mongolia and China that strange sounds came from. A loud sound was heard on a mountain in China, and all the villagers believed that a dragon was humming. Dragon roaring loudly in China? Everyone in Guizhou, a southwestern province in China, was going about their usual daily activities on June 20th when they heard something that didn't seem natural. Stopping dead in their tracks, the villagers looked at each other to confirm that they weren't the only ones hearing it. A loud sound, unlike everything they'd heard before, blasted through the atmosphere. And it didn't look like it was man-made. It seemed as if it came from a natural phenomenon that man was not yet familiar with. Taking precautions, everyone made sure their families and loved ones were first safe before they decided to investigate the source of this strange sound. The sound was so loud that it wasn't only the villages in Guizhou that heard it. Some farmers in Xiushui also picked up the noise and informed the entire inhabitants of Xiushui about the mysterious occurrence happening at the moment. Overcome with curiosity, the villagers in Xiushui left all that they were doing and ran to the mountain where the sound was coming from. Back in Guizhou, everyone was speculating on what was responsible for this sound that blared through the environment. From the deep, throaty growl that was bombarding their ears, they all concluded that it had to be a mystical beast like a dragon. Certainly a species of dragon that has been forgotten by humanity was trapped somewhere in the mountain and was either crying out for help or roaring with viciousness. Residents of Guizhou traced the sound all the way to the mountain, and they were surprised to find the people of Xiushui already there, observing the depth of the sounds they heard. It didn't take too much communication for the people of Guizhou to realize that even those in Xiushui also thought that it had to be a dragon humming loudly to attract attention. Others, who didn't believe that dragons still existed, attributed the sounds being made to a tiger's roar. Either way, all who were present agreed that the sounds blaring through the area belonged to that of a mystical beast. Everyone moved closer to the mountain to get a better hearing and hopefully see something that could give them answers. While they hung around in awe of the sound, local officials arrived at the scene and created a blockade so no one could enter the mountain and endanger their lives. Everyone was instructed to keep a safe distance from the mountain until a team of experts arrived to investigate the origin of this sound. That wasn't enough to discourage the villagers from staying. They stayed around completely intrigued by the loud noise booming through the atmosphere. No one wanted to leave and resume their daily activities. They were more interested in seeing this strange occurrence to the end. Everyone wanted to know what the team of experts would reveal the sound to be. An aerial look at the environment revealed thousands of villagers hanging around to hear the mystical beast roaring and humming loudly. Discussions can be heard in certain quarters as men disagree with each other on what could be responsible for the sound. Children held tightly to the clothes of their mothers as mothers stood beside their husbands or a male figure around them for protection. Sometimes the sound would switch from a deafening decibel to a low-pitched growl. The croaky snarl of the sound convinced everyone that it had to be a dragon, tiger, or a strange mythical beast that they hadn't seen before. Well, that is until now, because they're determined to stay there till the experts subdue the strange beast and bring it out to the sight of all. Men, women, and children resolved in their hearts that they would stay around till they saw the famed creature behind this constant roar. The sound came down to a low-pitched tone, and everyone occupied themselves discussing in groups. Others took out their camera and did a panorama video recording of the scene. This was surely an interesting event that'll make for viral social media content. While everyone was talking, the low-pitched tone suddenly turned into a loud growl. Everyone screamed excitedly, "It is growling! It is growling!" Children couldn't stop jumping and screaming within the protected presence of their parents. This all seemed like a safe adventure to the kids, without a real risk of getting endangered. Sheltered in the safe embrace of their mothers, They heard the thrilling growls of the supposed dragon and couldn't keep to themselves. The higher the sound level of the growl, the more visible excitement swept over the youths, women, men, and children. Those who were recording with their smartphones were lucky to capture the loud growls that were heard in every inch of the environment. Early postings of these videos on Chinese social media have attracted the attention of many social media users, going viral immediately as everyone wanted to experience the sound for themselves. By this time, the team of experts had arrived at the scene and started searching the area around the mountains. On their way coming, they had seen the viral videos of the booming sound coming from the mountain, so they knew what to expect. Unlike the average onlooker, the expert team of zoologists didn't think it was a dragon or any of such mystical creatures. Rather, they had a little animal in mind who could replicate such sounds, but they kept the information to themselves until they had concrete evidence. After hours of painstaking search of the mountain, the zoologists located the source of the loud sound. It confirmed what they had thought of all this while, but the people are going to have a hard time believing it. The actual animal howling so loudly was radically different from what the farmers and villagers had in mind, or precisely what they wanted to believe so badly. When news began to go around that the experts had identified the animal making these loud growls, curiosity became heightened. Everyone couldn't wait to see if their guesses were correct. Standing outside for the zoologists to come out of the mountain and narrate their findings to them, they were all ears waiting for any news that tickled their fancy. The team of experts finally made it out and began telling them the animal who made these sounds. Expecting to hear a dragon or tiger, they were all surprised and disappointed when the zoologists said the loud sounds were coming from a type of small bird known as the yellow-legged button quail. They couldn't believe their ears as they almost argued with the expert on their findings. A bird couldn't make such deep and loud guttural sounds. That sounded like something that came from a beastly predator. More precisely, something that came from a large animal that's almost extinct because humans couldn't identify the nature of that sound. The zoologist later explained to them that the yellow-legged button quail has a very loud voice that doesn't correlate with its small size. Just a little bigger than a sparrow, the loud growls heard were just the usual songs of a bird. Explaining why the deafening sound was consistent this time, the team said that whenever breeding season arrives, the females make such loud hooting continuously that can be heard as far as 100 meters. It started to make a little sense when a few villagers informed the experts that they had seen the birds, but they didn't think they could be responsible for such loud noises. Taking in all the information that had just played out was a little too much for the villagers. Some of them still struggled to believe that the intimidating sounds they heard came from little birds. With the depth of the sound, it was easy for the villagers to believe the rumor of a dragon growling. In fact, the local police authority was said to have detained 4 village residents for spreading the rumor online that a dragon was humming. And they can't be blamed entirely because an untrained ear could easily be misled by those loud noises. If the team of zoologists hadn't come to uncover the mystery behind the sounds, none of the villagers would have had the courage to approach the mountains. They all legitimately believed that a beastly creature with strength equivalent to that of a dragon was lurking inside the mountain. Even if their logical minds tried to refute this idea, hearing the loud growls physically with their ears reinforced the reality of this possibility. It wasn't only illiterate villagers who thought the sound was unusual and strange. Even the few educated residents were beginning to think along the lines of a strange creature throwing its weight around. A local primary school teacher, Liu Fuqiong, was reported saying, "It hummed twice or 3 times repeatedly every 6 or 7 minutes. The sound was very deep. I thought it was quite strange as well." The teacher also reported seeing a dozen villagers, leaving the others behind and tracing the sound to a cornfield, where they pursued a yellow bird that had a really short tail. Seems like it wasn't all the villagers that believed in the possibility of the sound coming from a dragon after all. That group of 12 villagers knew that something was amiss and trusted their guts to know that it wasn't possible for a dragon or a mystical beast to suddenly show up after becoming extinct millions of years before. They knew something wasn't adding up, and like the team of zoologists that got there later, they perceived that the source of the sounds was most likely to be something totally different from mainstream perception. After snooping around to track down the sound source, they had some success as they came across the yellow bird and engaged it in a hot pursuit. They were the only ones who witnessed the yellow bird making such unbelievably loud sounds. If they had told the crowd standing around the mountain that a little bird was responsible, no one would have believed them because they weren't experts after all. And according to most people, seeing is believing. Aside from the 12 No one else saw that bird giving such an ominous growl. The loud sound surely caused a scene in these two villages, Guizhou and Shushui. Everyone in the villages left whatever they were doing and headed down to the mountain to see for themselves. It would seem that this is the first time a mysterious sound of such decibel was heard from the mountain. But it is not so for neighboring communities. The director of the Provincial Wildlife Protection Center, Ron Jingcheng, confirmed this when he told local reporters that residents of nearby villages heard similar sounds but didn't think too much about it. Apparently, the yellow-legged buttonquail bird also visits the neighboring villages and blasts their disturbing noises at the highest volume there. The inhabitants of those regions don't make such a fuss about it because they're used to it. They've probably discovered that the unusual sound comes from these little birds. So they usually go about their daily activities while these terrible, loud sounds that shook the Guizhou and Xiushui villages keep booming in the atmosphere. Strange sounds haven't only been known to come from places on the earth like mountains or caves. Some people have also reported hearing mysterious sounds from above, horrifying sounds from the sky. People have recorded hearing strange sounds coming from the sky in Missouri, California. On July 6, 2023, residents of Missouri heard a weird sound in the distance. Upon further inspection, they discovered the location wasn't coming from a faraway distance. Rather, it was coming from the sky. No one had ever experienced something like this before, so this came as a shock to all who saw it. Reluctant to miss the moment, they all brought out their smartphones to record the strange natural phenomenon. The noise had a rumbling sound like that of a generator running in the clouds. One of those who heard the strange sound recorded it from her home. It started in the night and continued throughout the morning. Residents of the house woke up to hear the rumbling sound coming from the skies. It played out steadily in the background behind the chirping of the birds. It was like a consistent hum that refused to fade away. This didn't happen in Missouri only. Prior to this, on April 13, 2023, a man in North Carolina was sitting in his living room on a cool Tuesday night watching TV. He was about to zone out in front of the TV as usual when he was roused back into full consciousness by the heavy humming outside his home. Thinking that something was amiss, he rushed out of the house only to hear the hum more distinctly coming from the skies. Many people reported hearing the same strange sound from the skies. Mike Colombo, a reporter at Contact 2 TV channel, said that from February 2nd, they had received dozens of phone calls and emails from people claiming they heard this mystery hum from the clouds. No one has been able to point out the exact reason for this hum, but someone who lived less than 3 miles northwest of Micah Mayfield's home recorded the sound with a smartphone. Micah Mayfield was seen admitting that the hum was low and that it sometimes became inaudible, yet super consistent. Micah continued that in the evening after 8 p.m., you hear a very low humming noise that would come in a wave pattern. These sounds from the sky have been the talk of the town for a while now. Since no one can explain why it happened, people have given different speculations and spread rumors about its existence. The West County Councilwoman, Sholanda Webb, said she remembered asking her husband saying, "Babe, do you hear that noise?" And he was like, "What noise?" And she urged him to listen closely, and it was then he finally heard it. From her North St. Louis County home, the sounds from the sky could be heard. She's determined to get to understand why this hum is going on, so she directed the county to look into the matter thoroughly. Individually and corporately, people have decided to narrow down the cause of these sounds from the sky. The first speculation they have is that a company is behind this, especially those involved in production or construction. The Aspire STL pipeline and storage facility was investigated, and they denied being responsible for the sound. Next, the Lambert Airport and the Corps of Engineers were queried about the hum, and they said they knew nothing about it. Before anyone could ask them unsettling questions, the Central Stone Company quarry came out and told St. Louis County that they were not doing anything during the hours that people reported hearing the hum. The people are not satisfied with the responses given by these companies, nor the efforts being made to get to the root of this. Residents of the states where the hum is heard suggest that local authorities investigate everything from grain bins to barge traffic, down to the industrial gas company in Madison County, Illinois, and even the Taos hum. The Taos hum is a continuous hum in the region of Taos. Those who live in the region are convinced that something fishy is going on there with the constant humming. Nobody knew when the hum started, but around 30 years ago, residents of Taos started making complaints of low-frequency noise in Taos. Over time, the hum began to grow louder, and people added more urgency into finding its source. Taos isn't the only place where hums are heard. Other places in the world, such as Australia, all the way to England, have admitted hearing the presence of a hum coming from the sky. In Sweden, people could hear sounds like a trumpet from the sky blaring all over the place. Another sound like a trumpet was also heard in Michigan. In British Columbia, Canada, Dr. Glenn McPherson confessed to hearing a mysterious humming sound in his home. He first thought that the sound was made by one of his home appliances until he couldn't find the appliance making it. So he decided to cut the power to the entire house. Interestingly, when the power supply to the house was cut off, Dr. McPherson observed that the sound got louder. It was then he realized that it wasn't a personal issue. Rather, it was a worldwide phenomenon. Dr. McPherson labeled the sound as the worldwide hum. Different utility officials have been reaching out to say they're not the cause of this sound. Colonial Pipeline was reported saying they weren't doing any work at that time that would make such sounds. These loud sounds come from the sky, and one is likely to believe that they have their roots from another planet. Maybe it could come from a fighter jet that's zooming across the sky. But what about the hum in other locations? It remains a mystery as no one can tell for sure why the sound comes from the sky. Residents of northwest Oklahoma City are having it worse as they reported not getting enough sleep in a week due to the loud booms. The sounds were heard loudly during the day and night. A couple of homeowners complained that the sound keeps their kids up at night, shakes their walls, and even causes their animals to act crazy. Thanks for watching to the end. Leave a comment on your thoughts about the sounds coming from the giant cave. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more interesting videos.